So welcome everyone, Alessandro here, and I'm a Qigong practitioner of 35 years and very excited today to have a guest, Vidya from Vivid Outcomes, who is a practitioner and has many skills helping both adults and children. And I'll tell you a little bit about her, then I'll let her explain a bit more about herself. So from what I know, she has experience or is qualified in hypnotherapy, NLP, EFT, mindfulness coaching, and is currently studying EMDR. So many skills. And I know from having met her a couple of times recently that she's an amazing, very caring practitioner. And today we're going to talk about how to calm the busy mind. So Vidya, would you like to share anything that I've missed about you, either about, your work, your passion, and a little bit about yourself?
Well, I think you've really wrapped it up there nicely, Alessandra, actually. Yeah, I help people essentially with stress, anxiety, and really that busyness that we have in our lives, and helping people navigate through that. I think we live in such times that are set to challenge us, and it's meeting those challenges and building that resilience within us to do that. So yeah, I help people with that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And have you found this past year, I think I probably know the answer, but have you found that there's been a great increase in parents both seeking help for their children and adults, for themselves? So many more people at home, so much more anxiety around.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one actually, because I found those who were experiencing anxiety before, and anxiety, it's important to say that it's perfectly normal to feel anxious. That anxiety state, we all have that. But when it's on that prolonged it's a prolonged feeling, then yes, you need help to just reset something, to just calm that. But what I've observed is that those who were experiencing anxiety in that kind of way before lockdown, they suddenly felt calmer with lockdown, because that world that they had to face and negotiate just got smaller and felt safer, and they were more in control of it. So actually their anxiety kind of calmed, and actually it was the people who were perfectly managing their lives in that usual kind of way that actually were suddenly challenged. How can I go about life now? So it kind of, the pendulum swung, and that's what I observed. So it's been really interesting to see how different people have handled what lockdown has brought up.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting that everybody's been affected. I mean, I often, I heard Italians, I'm Italian originally, talk about, in the Second World War, people were sent out to die for their country. Now we're being asked to stay at home, and that's really challenging us. So in a way, this too shall pass like anything else. But I feel like the whole world has been affected, and the whole world was kind of racing in a direction that was a bit directionless. We were all chasing things like, chasing the money and the success and these material things. And suddenly we've had to slow down and question things. And like you say, I think the people maybe who thought that their life was okay, now they're questioning their values, their priorities, relationships, and it's not a bad thing. I see quite a lot of positive coming out of this, even though it's a very challenging time.
Yeah, and I actually think we're slowly ebbing into that space, though, of easily forgetting some lessons that we might have learned in those earlier days. Already we're thinking, right, there's a vaccine. Oh, when are we going to get back to normal? Oh, 2021, what are we going to do? And we're already wishing life away, when actually we are here right now before Christmas doing usual things on that every day. And I think it's so important we race ahead with that busyness, and really we've got got to learn those lessons that we maybe were faced with earlier on, of right, we've got to take each day as it is. And that's actually helpful to us, whatever aspect, whatever chapter in life we're at, really.
No, I agree totally. I think it's easy to forget the lesson. So in you know, as our theme is, if you like, calming the mind and maybe being more mindful and present, would you like to talk a little bit about any ideas you have around how people can be more present and just, you know, appreciating the moment, and explaining a little bit more about how to stop the mind racing ahead, if you like?
Yeah, well, but here's the thing, our mind is a great tool that we use to do great things, but we overuse it. So we do this, we will fill it with those thoughts that, you know, going off into the ether about what next year might even look like. We do that with a view to planning, so that we have this sense of certainty about what life might look like. That gives us a sense of direction. And I'm not here to say, you know, that's bad and you shouldn't be doing it. It gives us goals. That's what motivates us. But by the same token, you can put that tool down every so often. It's as my teachers told me, you know, take a pen. You could just keep writing and writing and writing. You'll end up writing nonsense after a point. That there's only so many things that are worth using the pen to write, and actually it's worthy to put the pen down every so often and have a think about what's going on right now. Otherwise you'll be writing pages of drivel. So just like that, it's important to put the mind down. And I think, you know, we talk about breathing and, you know, just calm down and take a deep breath, but there's so much validity in that, because here's the thing, if you don't get in touch with your breath, that breath is your sign of life. And come what may that's going on in that outside world, all that chaos, whether you are alone, whether you have somebody, whether you are really fearful, whether you are worrisome, or whether you're really happy, at the end of the day, without the ego, you just have yourself with you. And actually your breath is your best friend, and it tells you whether you're feeling buoyant or you're feeling a little bit stressed. If you're in tune with it, you can really harness the power of the lessons that your breath might be teaching you, giving you those subtle signs of, oh, you know, do you just want to take a moment to just come back to yourself? So really, breath is really important. And I think it's always good to take like a balancing breath. And for children, I definitely always recommend that, you know, you take a breath in with 4, like the sun is rising, and then you let the rain come down. And it's important to teach them even those subtle things, that there is sunshine, there is rain in your life, and both have a reason for being. And you can find that even in your breath, in the rise and the fall of your breath. It's like in your world, Alexandra, it's energy, right? In and out. It's a balancing. It's just how it is. And I think it's so important to teach children that from a really young age, because all those fears that we have, you know, in this very digital world, children are really managing a different set of parameters, and they're really challenged. And it's important for them to know they are alive, they are breathing, and they have themselves, no matter what is going on in that outside world. So to connect with their breath is, for for me, it's so important.
I love that. I mean, we do quite a lot also in Qigong with like conscious breathing and, calming the breath, sometimes counting it, oxygenating the blood, breathing in and out in certain ways. Any tips maybe for adults, any kind of breathing technique you want to share, or is it just kind of to mention that the breath is such an important,
I think an easy one that people could just do before they go to bed in the evening is to take a count of 4 in, and what we do is we tend to quite shallow breathe, so we breathe from the upper part of the body, but actually we must really breathe from right down within and really expand our abdomen, our belly, as we take that breath in, so we're in full kind of capacity, and as we breathe out we squeeze that air out. So before bedtime, a really calming thing to do is to take a breath of 4, so through the nose, expanding that belly, hold there for just a tiny bit, and then breathe out for 8. And repeat that for a few cycles, and you'll just notice that difference, because you're just leveling up your breath and really breathing in the good stuff, but rebalancing all those energies that you've accumulated in the day.
That's great. I was doing that as you said. I could really feel the movement down in the lower abdomen, and that's in Qigong, that's our main energy center, the Dantian we call it, and similarly in yoga. So it makes sense to breathe from our main energy center. And obviously when we're born and the belly button, that area, that's where we breathe as children. But as you say, when we get older, it gets a bit higher up, the breath. And that's great. And I think, a lot of people have had issues with sleep. So that's a great tip for doing before going to sleep and calming the whole system. So thank you for sharing that. It's quite hard on these short calls. We said we were just going to do like 15, 20 minutes. So I think people want to get in touch. I'll put your website below, vividoutcomes.co.uk, and people can get in touch for help with themselves, with their children, etc. And then I'll just relate this a little bit to Qigong. So quite interesting what you said about with the children and sensing the rain and the sun, and that both are needed, the opposites. We can't always have sunshine and we can't always have joy. And in Qigong terms as well, it's all about this balance between the heaven and the earth, but also we call it the yin and the yang. The earth is the yin, yang is the heaven. And as humans, everything is about finding a good, healthy balance. So even going back to the joy, I know from Chinese medicine, for example, the heart relates to joy. And, we can't always have joy. And in fact, sometimes if we're, really joyful all the time, or laughing all the time, or joyful all the time, it can actually weaken the heart. And people can actually even get serious problems from overjoy, if I can call it that. So, and no extreme is good. Of course, we don't want the depression and sadness, but it's finding that balance in between. So in Qigong, we're often balancing this, the whole energy system. And one of the main principles is, moving the energy down to earth. And as we're sitting at the moment, if anybody's watching, just having the feet on the earth, solidly rooted, when we're grounded like this, and maybe doing some of the breathing you mentioned as well, the energy is always coming down from the heavens. The pure element is always coming down through the body into the earth. So we're just kind of in between heaven and earth. And Qigong is a practice that helps us reconnect ourselves to this energy that keeps nature alive and keeps us vibrant. So I think if we can spend more time in nature, Many of us have done that, you know, recently, have had to do that. One of the few things we're allowed to do is go for walks in nature. I would encourage everybody, and with their kids, and even, you know, children who are kind of stuck to their, you know, mobile phones or iPads. You know, it's really important to get them out there. And, you know, even if they don't want to go, sometimes once they're out there, you notice their behavior relaxes and changes. So I think from a Qigong point of view, yeah, as you mentioned, breathing is a really important thing. And if we, you know, put our hands on this area just below the belly button that you mentioned, this is also a good way of sensing the movement and the breath, and actually helps to center and ground our energy. So, you know, many of us are, you know, sitting, working on computers. I would say when you are sitting, you know, have the feet flat on the ground. You can move the spine a little bit to release the spine, have the spine straight when you're working, head up, floats up slightly. So the energy is aligned. I think many of us, as we're sitting on Zoom, or if we've got our laptops on our laps, which we shouldn't really have, you know, try and have them on kind of another surface, our energy gets a bit collapsed, we get a bit lazy. So even if we're working from home, to kind of stay aligned, centered, and, you know, while you're working, you can actually work on your health as well. So anyway, the website is flowinghealth.co.uk. I'll put it down below. People can look up more about Qigong and more about connecting with you. So any final closing thoughts to kind of people can take with them as tips for switching the mind off and being present?
Yeah, just put the tool down every so often. Just put the tool down. You won't stop your thoughts, but you can choose whether to engage in them or not.
That's good. I like that. Yes, and I like something I heard recently about just being the awareness, you know, of what we are that's behind the thoughts. So even this idea of maybe observing the thoughts, and, you know, are we the thoughts or are we the observer? And when we're truly present, it's like we can just observe the mind playing these games. And in Qigong, often they talk about like the monkey mind. We just need to tie it down a bit. Then it runs off, tie it down a bit, runs off. Train the mind to be truly here and present. So thank you, Vidya. Lovely to see you on here. This is the first actually chat I've had with a guest. I haven't even given this a name, but I think we will title it, you know, being present and resting the mind, or preventing the mind from racing ahead, something like that. And then we'll put it out on social media.
Well, it's good to have been present with you today. It's been good.
Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.